Hello everyone. Today we have with us Dr. Romi Chopra. He will be discussing with us the new emerging trends in healthcare. Dr. Chopra,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure. Thank you very much
So
indeed.
I would start by saying that I've been a physician for 20 years and you probably have been a physician more than that.
About 40 years now.
What do you see are the changing patterns in healthcare and how do you see AI getting into a healthcare and what
Yeah.
changes do you see with that?
Yeah, so, it's we're living a new economy. Amazon is everywhere. We call it Amazonification of life in general, but Amazonification of healthcare is coming, or it's here actually. And what has happened is healthcare has gone from being very kind of boutique. It was like the church, if you would, doctors were special. Versus now it has become where they're consumers of healthcare. And I truly believe that life's a journey. Everybody's a patient. You can be born by yourself, you need prenatal care. You go through the journey of life, we all need care. And then, even after you die, you need postmortem care. You can't even die alone. So, in this journey, there's a healthcare journey. And what do we want? What do we as humans want? We want to live as long as we can and have a great quality of life. And today's era with technology gets us to get connected with just about anybody and everybody around the globe. And healthcare mainly has become a information game. So there are four levels of this. You and I have talked about data forever, right? But data it's like, call it oil or whatever you want people refer to it. That data, when you process it enough, becomes information. That information, when you internalize it, becomes knowledge. You may know something, but the real question is why? Why should I do this? What are those insights that you need from there? And that's the wisdom level. So one of the things we've tried to bring that wisdom and those insights into healthcare and there's so much data. Data is growing rapidly for every individual, all the way up to genomics data, all the data that you may have, whether it's imaging, your meds, everything else. And the challenge also has been that all this sitting in silos. So, patients bounce from place to place. They may get medicines from place to place. And it's now becoming that with this information technology and everything else that we have, it's all personalized. So you see, my genomic breakdown is different, yours is different. A study may have been done in a population that doesn't match you and me. So it's coming down to also with all this information and knowledge and wisdom to get personalized healthcare. Personalized for what? So that you can lead your best life. So one of the things I've been focused on the last 7-10 years is building a patient management platform where all of these systems, from whether knowing about the person to acquiring them as a patient, connecting with them, we built what's called omni-channel healthcare, where it means you can't come to the clinic, we come to the house, home health. You're traveling, we'll do digital health, televisit, whatever that may be. You may be in a clinic, you may be in a nursing home, you may be in a hospital, but all that continuity is maintained. And that's on these digital platforms. And all this information that's coming together, at some point, has to get summarized, and you've got to be able. That's where newer technologies like AI is coming in, and you're solving these problems faster and faster. So, I could go on for a bit, but that's the overall paradigm within this. One of the things we've done now is we've created what's called, I call it P3RM, patient relationship management, provider, and payer. These are the three major people in this. And so now we've said, everything about the patient, so you know their health story, but you know their social determinants. You see, even where you live determines your outcomes of health. Education, language. So those social determinants of health are huge. Because, you and I do very complex procedures. What happens when they go home? How do they communicate? Who's caring for them? So there is a lot of these social determinants that come into play. And at the overall healthcare industry now, especially in the provider space. The Institute for Healthcare Improvement, for example, has put out the quintuple aim of healthcare. What is that? First is you have to provide excellent quality of care. Just like any business provides excellent product or service. Second is an excellent experience. You know, making an appointment should be a problem, going shouldn't be a problem, etc. There should be smooth. Third is that the providers should not get burnt out. You know, we as docs remember working through the nights, it's a lot of stress, there's a lot of physician burnout. Then it's got to be cost effective. You know, we can't just keep throwing money at this because in the US, it's a $4 trillion healthcare economy, more than Germany's GDP, more than UK's GDP. And finally, the last thing is to make healthcare equitable. So if you live in a certain zip code, you're a certain race, you're a certain educational level, all of these determine what's happening to it. So with that quintuple aim, you know, we worked on a patient care platform, patient management platform, where every piece of information about a patient we collect, including their household, their problems, their meds, everything else. Then we know everything about all their providers. So if you send me a patient, I know how to connect with you. I know how to collaborate with you for that patient's success. Okay. So we call it patient-centered, evidence-based, and you do it better, faster, cheaper. But also we are patient-centered, we are connected with the patient, and we all collaborate for their success. Okay?
Yeah, you touched some very pertinent points, and I think the few questions that come to my mind is, number one, we talk about data. And one of the concerns that I always feel, how do we tease out the good data from the bad data? And why it is important, because now this data is available to the patients, the providers, as well as the industry and the government.
Yes.
So how do we take that responsibility and still inform our patients about what is good data, what is bad data?
Yeah. So one of the first things I realize is you see in our healthcare space, payers control just about everything. The two largest are Medicare, of course, and then commercial, of course. And there are very few patients who pay their own healthcare. So you have the government and you have employers paying for this. So we also do what's called Payer 360. So we know that's the chain. Within that information, now Medicare and the government have mandated that all this information must be interoperable.
Correct.
Okay? So now, as a patient, if you give consent that, hey, you can share my data, it's called clinical information exchange, where a patient goes to one hospital, the second hospital. All these EHRs are required to be able to do what's called CDA. There's the clinical document architecture, the standards of FHIR, the FAST, healthcare information, interoperability resources. So those things are now coming together, and now you can see.
Yeah.
So for example, when a patient comes into it, based on our system, what we use several EMRs, of course, and then we take whatever meds they have taken from somewhere, we reconcile it.
Yeah.
The patient can see it too. So that's the digital transformation.
Right. So where I'm going with what you're talking to me is not the data comes in and data is helpful to us. Now comes an important point is how, so I can understand on a broad front that it will allow us to manage our resources very well. People who are sick in one part can be allocated more resources. Is there going to be transparency in the healthcare system? And one of the problems is we don't know if we go to some place to shop something, it's the same price or we know exactly what it is. Would this rapid availability of the data be able to make prices more affordable?
Yes, definitely. That's part of the quintuple aim of making it cost effective. So you and I do procedures in outpatient centers, right?
Yes.
And OBLs. That's part of reducing the cost, and that's why the government, the economists, et cetera, support that, because you have to find a way to reduce the cost that comes into play here. So as we work through this paradigm, that's very important to understand. You know, earlier we did things on paper.
Correct.
Then we digitized it, just scanned it. Then we went to digitalization, which means we were putting stuff into an EMR system.
Yes.
Okay, it's like taking a picture with a digital camera. But there still wasn't any transformation.
Correct.
So now comes digital transformation. So digitization, digitalization, and finally now digital transformation. And what that transformation is, what insights are you getting? So for example, I founded this company, CIMS, CIMSS, and it manages medical practices, but it's a MSO, a management service organization based on technology as well. So that every piece of data, whether it's procedural, medication, problem, engagement data, you got a call, you got an email, all of this is now going into first a data lake and then a data warehouse, and is being analyzed live to get insights. What this patient, what's the next thing to do? And similarly, we're using technology now, which AI is baked into this, where if a patient has diabetes and they have a problem, ICD-10 code diabetes, we actually put them on a journey where they'll get a text or an email reminding them different things, all geared towards them leading a healthy life, not just a disease management. We call managing your health. So there's so otherwise everybody's running around looking for a diagnosis. And you're trying to diagnose a problem and then do a fancy procedure or something, versus how can people live really healthy?
Yeah.
And in that, so we apply a whole holistic approach to it. So at Mimit Health, we go from meditation to AI.
Wow.
So we obviously do all the complex procedures, but what else is the patient needs? So whether that's at the spiritual, emotional level, we teach them how to meditate, relax, calm down. But then we teach them how to manage their health, not just their disease.
Correct.
Whether it's diet, whatever. And that's where all this digital platforms and technology is coming, that people's lives are being transformed. Yeah. We are doing remote patient monitoring. We've got for blood pressure, hypertension, we measure foot temperature, et cetera. We know how many steps they've walked, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So that's all coming together. I'm wearing a smartwatch, you got smartphones, but now you've got all the sensor data coming into play. So all that is coming together. But why? That's the wisdom.
Yeah.
That why is to lead a very, very healthy life.
Good. It was great. Well, thank you, Dr. Chopra, for shedding light into what we can see into the future and how all these data points are going to improve our healthcare and our individual health, and not just a generalized health system, but our individual data points can be used to improve our health. Well,
Awesome.
thank you so
Thank
much.
You. Pleasure.
It was great talking.
Thank you.